Hello, everyone. If you're watching this on the replay, you can fast forward about 14 minutes, 13 minutes, and you'll get to the beginning. This is the pre-show. Hello, everyone. Hello, chat room. If you are joining us on the chat room, you will want to go to any page on ProfessorMesser.com, but ProfessorMesser.com/live will be the best one, and you can follow along with the chat at the bottom of the page. Let's get some lights turned on in here. Ah, what a difference when there's light. I don't know if I need to adjust these lights or not. We'll work on that for next time. If there will be a next time, well, of course there'll be a next time. Okay, let's get rid of a lot of nonsense on my screens. There's the nice lady. That's Socrative. Hi, nice lady. Okay. That's working. Let's start a quiz. Look at all y'all already in this chat room. Already in the Socrative. That's y'all. That's a Southern colloquialism for you all. It's this one, and it's teacher paste, and I don't need to know student names. And let's start it. So if you're in there, you'll at least see one of these. Might as well look, see where this is. Hello, chat room. We need to change the website so that it shows that we're doing this live right now. Is right now. Right now. Click here to join us. And that needs to go to not the registration page, but the live page. Save text. Empty caches. The Socrative code is still Professor Messer, all one word. Let's do a check of cameras. The lights are a little bit different this time, so I'm really looking at lights and how they're looking. Won't be using this one much, but there it is. There's the Socrative. There's what I see on my YouTube side. That'll be a presentation. In fact, I should put up the presentation. Make sure that works. How's this work? What buttons do I push? It's been 2 weeks. You'd think I've never done this before. Very nice. So this should work there. Very nice. That's my mouse, right? What's the, it's the big, don't know what that is. Okay. Okay. That's what that was. 3, 4. Camera 1, 2, 3, 4. There's camera 1 with the thing. There's camera 1 without the thing. Okay. Well, that's delightful. Is the graphic working? Yes. So, it's the United Kingdom. California. We're sort of stretching the globe here. So for the questions, I'll just put it in chat because you'll see that before I say it. There we go. What else? I actually have a list. I made a list of here's what you do if you're doing a live stream just before the event. Update my TriCaster. with the stream information. I have done that because you would not be seeing me had I not. And update the website banner with live information. I've done that again just now. So that's good. I need to bring up more things on my screen though. And I need to find my other stuff. And I need to do that in the other thing. That works, and that works. Yay. I must have been reading my own materials. Okay. We can turn off this thing, stop that. Might as well start one of the recordings. Might as well start all the recordings. Since we're here, since we're doing this, here we go. And those recordings are going. One less thing to worry about. On Socrative, I only see, in fact, I've disabled student names in my reports. I could do a report at the end and see what answer did each person do. But of course, you could put any name you'd like in here. But I didn't. I disable the student names because it's not important to me. I want to see sort of the rounded up number that we see here. This isn't that big of a monitor. This is 27 inches on both sides. 27 inch in front of me and 27 inch at the left. 17 over, you can't see it because my head's in the way. 17 inch there, and those are about, I don't know, 7 in front of me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Only 7 screens in front of me. That's all you need to do a live stream. Used to do this with one machine. You know, one box in front of me. What happened? What happened to all of that? Let's turn off the noisy thing. So we can't hear the periscope going off every 2 seconds. Oh yeah, and the one in front of me is like a 60 inch. That's 1080p. So I just missed the 1080p. It's mere 1080p-ness. That didn't sound right. The screen in front of me, you can't even see it, sort of back there is a screen that shows me the information on my, well, I'll show you since I have 5 minutes. Let's look at, what's it called? If you were this, what would you be called? So right now you're looking at my bird cam. What I see is, actually I need to change this if I'm going to do that. What I see there, change this to this. So what I normally see, is this the outside though? Where's output 1? What am I looking at now? Output 1. So if what I normally see is this, there you go, and you see sort of a bad thing happening on the other side. That's what's on the big screen in front of me. Hey, congratulations, Carlos, for passing your 801. Very nice. Oh, you know what I didn't take is a, yeah, we're going to do this in the last 3 minutes. But it helps so much is the vocal sound. It would have certainly helped to have couple windows open. The Socrative would be a good one. And the screen with the chat and the video at one time would be nice. Depends on how you like to work. A couple minutes, we'll get started. Well, 36 already in Socrative. Let's see, it's already 5 minutes, so folks should already have gotten their email and Twitter. Did the Twitter go? I didn't see the Twitter go. It didn't seem to go. What's up with that? Ooh-wee. Let's find out. Oh, no, there it went. 3 minutes ago, just popped up on my feed. Never mind. False alarm. Call it off. I think that's a little hot. I think it's a little bright. I'm going to have to adjust this. Later on, I did a big thing with lights this week. So, of course, as soon as you get it exactly the way you'd like it, you change everything. That's what happens. Well, we got most of the vocals down. It's time to get started, though. So let's do exactly that and get this thing started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the June 2015 A+ study group from Professor Messer. I am James Messer, your host for this next hour of live Q&A on the internet. In a moment, I'll tell you how you can also participate live and interactively and follow along and see how well you do with all of the questions I have for you this month. I've got a lot of things that have been going on here at the studio. There's all kinds of things that I'm constantly working on. One of the things that we've been doing deals with a lot of lighting and a lot of other things. So we'll be trying out some of these new pieces. If you are watching us live, you can follow along on the Professor Messer website at professormesser.com/live. And because you're on that live page, I get to see the chat that's at the bottom of the page. So all of us can communicate back and forth. If you're watching this on YouTube, which is great, you can watch it there, but you can't see the chat. So you may want to go to professormesser.com/live to be able to do that. There is quite a bit that is going on, but I want to also thank everybody who has throughout the month helped to support what we do here on the website, not just by watching videos, but also by doing things like subscribing to my YouTube channel at professormesser.com/YouTube. You always hear people say, subscribe to my channel, subscribe to my channel. It's surprising how much visibility and help we get from Google when we do that. That's why we always mention those pieces. Plus, you get to see whenever I put a new video online. You can also follow along on Twitter every day. I have a live A+ pop quiz question question, and you can get that if you follow me on Twitter at professormesser.com/Twitter. And also, if you're planning to take your exam, I have 10% off vouchers. Those are supported by our friends at GTS Learning. You can find out more about those at professormesser.com/vouchers. You may already have your A+ certification, which would be great too. And if you do, then you can get continuing education credits for this. You can find out more at this very involved URL on the CompTIA website, or just go to that Google thing and type in CompTIA Continuing Education CEUs or something along those lines, and it will show you how you can do this. Whether you're watching this live or you're watching this afterwards in a recorded fashion, you can get continuing education units. You're going to want to listen, though, throughout this particular presentation, because sometime in this first hour, I will give you a special code that you will use to send to me so that I know you really watched it. And I can send you a digital certificate back and be able to qualify and verify that you have indeed seen all of this. Well, you can, of course, also take this course anywhere. Of course, all of my videos, every single video that I do, I put online and make available for you to watch absolutely free. Some people like to take the courses with them. And if you're one of these people that are offline, or you just want to have a copy that's local, or maybe you'd like some MP3 files, or you'd like the PDFs of the slides, I have those available in my course. You can go to professormesser.com/downloadable-A+, and you can do absolutely all of that. These also have closed captioning built into them. It's one thing you may notice on my website is every video I have a human being go through and provide a full transcript and closed captioning. You can turn on the closed captioning on YouTube and get it. You'll have the closed captioning on these offline videos as well. And all of the transcripts are on my website when you're watching the video. Just scroll down a bit and you'll see all of those as well. Well, as I mentioned earlier, you can follow along with us today. So pop open a new window and go to Socrative.com. This is where you will be able to answer these questions along with all of us. And we'll get to see what the answers are. Don't worry, I won't see your individual answers. We're going to roll these up and see overall what everybody might be answering. Go to Socrative.com, choose the student login. That's the green little link right here. The room name is Professor Messer, all one word, and make sure you spell that right or you'll be the only one in there, because you'll be in a room all by yourself. So if you're not seeing a question on your screen right now or throughout this particular live event, then you're not in the right room. And then once this event is over, you won't be able to do this either. So you can, of course, follow along on the replay and see what everybody else answers. This is only for people that are watching this live. So you can go to Professor Messer, ProfessorMesser, and go to that room. There's also apps you can get for your Android, your iOS, or your Windows phone. Go to those appropriate App Store, Google Play, Windows Store, and you'll be able to download the student version of Socrative and do that as well. So if you go to Socrative, you'll see this question: how long have you been studying for your A+ certification? And you can answer this question in there as well. You can find that at Socrative.com. What you'll end up seeing is a question there, and I'll see it on my side. It looks something like this. You can see how long have you been studying, and we can see that of the 61 people that have answered, there's 67 people currently in Socrative and answering this, and we'll see that number start to go up as you're hitting it. Less than 3 months, 29%, 3 to 6 months. We've got 22%, 6 to 9 months, 19%, more than 9 months, 11%. These are my people down there. And I already have my A+ certification. 20% of you have already gotten your A+ certification. You may be watching this for continuing education credits, which would be great. And I'll tell you all about that later on with those pieces. There were a number of questions that I got this month about the A+ certification. There's a lot going on with A+ right now, because we're coming up to kind of the end of 3 years of the latest A+ version, which is the 22801 and the 22802. CompTIA has said on some of the social media sites that they expect to have a new version available by the end of the year. But don't worry, if you're already studying for your 800 series, they generally give you another 6 months to even take it. So you could have both exams available at the same time. That way, if you're studying for the 800, they don't cut you off and force you to go to another exam. With the new objectives, you can keep your existing objectives, and whether you pass the 800 series or whatever the new series is going to be, I'm assuming it's the 900, then you'll be able to get the exact same A+ certification. In the existing exam, however, and this is the only one that's currently available, so this will be the one that you will study for and that you will take, is the 22801, which includes hardware, networking, laptops, printers, and operational procedures. You can see there are a maximum of 90 questions. What's interesting is the passing score is a 675, and that's out of a scale from 100 to 900. What in the world is that? Well, what we think is that CompTIA starts you at 100 and that each question is worth a certain number of points, and every question we think is worth a different number of points, and you have to get all the way up to 675 to pass. So it's not really a percentage completion that you can calculate because every question is weighted a little bit differently. So the 802 is a little different because it deals with operating systems and security and mobile devices and troubleshooting. You have to get a 700 on that exam. So a little bit more stringent with their grading on that particular piece. So if you are studying and ready to take your exam, these are ones that you will be focusing on to be able to see that. So let's answer some questions. If we're going through this process of doing some questions today, I've put a bunch of questions available for you online. And let's start with one that's from the 22801 exam. This is a question a little bit about security, but it really focuses on your hardware of your device, specifically a laptop device. Which of these security features can track your computer if it's stolen? I guess not necessarily a laptop. We generally think of devices being stolen as laptops, but I'm looking for which security feature would you need to have enabled, turned on, or is used if your computer happens to be stolen. We've got a number of options available for you. One of these is Find My Laptop. B is LoJack for laptops. C is the Windows Security Center. D is the Windows Tracker. And E is Local Security Policy. So one of these security features is going to be used if your computer is stolen. You'll want to go to Socrative.com to answer this particular question, and you can find in the room name Professor Messer. You'll be able to see what this particular question is. That same set of questions and answers I just presented to you, you will see on the screen, and you'll be able to answer those. There is a lot that we have to deal with mobile devices. And one of the things you'll find, especially on the CompTIA exam and the A+ exam, the Network Plus exam, of course, the Security Plus exam, is security. They blend in security in all of these. And it seems every time there's a new version of the exam, they tend to add more and more security pieces to it, which I think makes sense. A lot of what we're doing these days deals specifically with security and how we want to be able to handle security, not just with our operating systems, but the physical devices as well. And this is certainly one of those things that you will want to also consider. So if we start looking at security features that we can track a computer if it's stolen, let's see how we did. We have about 75 people that have answered. That should be a good number. Again, no answering this in the chat room. Let's see, how do we do? And you can see we've got a little bit of a mix. Nobody chose E, Local Security Policy. I guess you folks have been doing some pretty good studying because you know that is something that is a built-in security feature of Windows, but it's part of the operating system. It doesn't really help you if your device is stolen. If we go with the one that got the most number of answers, we would choose LoJack for laptops. But you can see in double digits, we have Find My Laptop and Windows Tracker. So it's got to be one of these to be able to work with that. I think whenever you start working with security, you're going to want to deal and work a lot with these particular things. There is a function. In fact, the answer to this one is something called, interestingly enough, CompuTrace. And of course, I didn't give you the answer CompuTrace in this particular one. And that's because the term CompuTrace has actually been changed to LoJack for laptops. CompuTrace was the original name of this particular software, sort of hardware combination to a degree. This was licensed from the folks that make the LoJack technology for cars. If your car is stolen, there is a LoJack that you can have in your automobile that will track your device and allows the authorities to find your car if somebody happens to steal it. So they took that very popular brand name, licensed it, and changed it from CompuTrace to LoJack for laptops. So there's a very good example of knowing a type of security. This is a pretty interesting piece of software. It's built into the BIOS of your computer. So when you're buying the computer, there is a very interesting integrated function in the BIOS itself. So it's part really of the hardware inside of it. This is one where now that it's part of the BIOS, it's effectively part of the computer. Wherever the computer goes, the BIOS function for LoJack for laptops is included along with it. And when you install a piece of software into your operating system, it talks to this piece inside the BIOS and it communicates back to a central site. What's interesting is if you were to pull out the hard drive and put in a brand new hard drive, somebody stole your computer, they took your hard drive and replaced it and loaded a brand new operating system, because you've enabled this capability in your BIOS, it will automatically install its software into the operating system. How you like that? So even if the bad guys completely replace the storage, your BIOS is going to tell the operating system you need to install this, and it does install it so that it can then track the system. And there's a number of things that this allows the good guys to do. The machine goes into a phone home function so that it's constantly talking back to a central facility. There is also, in this theft mode, a way to lock the laptop so that nobody can use it. You can delete files using this LoJack for laptops. You can set it so that it requires a startup password. There's a number of other security features associated with this, but it's quite the lockdown. A lot of people don't like this particular feature because in a way it's a bit of a rootkit. It doesn't matter what operating system you install into this. It doesn't matter how you're plugging in and replacing hard drives. It always copies itself to the operating system. So you really do have to trust that this is legitimate software that's running on your computer. But if this is something you're very concerned about, your laptops get stolen and you want to find that piece of hardware, this may be a good way to do it using LoJack for laptops. So if you're one of the people that answered B, LoJack for laptops, the 62% of you would have got that one absolutely right. So that's one of the things that whenever we start working with technologies, especially security technologies, these become very important. It's just another thing to worry about. If you are on your 220-801 exam, this is part of the very first section dealing with the BIOS. Talks about a number of security features, and this is one that you'll certainly want to know about. Well, let's shift our gears now and do a 220-802 question, shall we? Let's go over to the question here. Which of these protocols is used on a mobile device to send email? Please don't answer in the chat room. We're going to figure this one out ourselves. To be able to answer this again, you go same place. You just stay on the same screen. You don't even have to touch anything. But if you are just joining us, you can go to Socrative.com to the room name Professor Messer. And make sure you spell that right. You're going to the student login, and you're logging in as the name into the room Professor Messer. And you can put your real name in there or not. It doesn't really matter to me. Now, you've got a number of options available here for using a mobile device to send email. Try to make this a little bit bigger for everybody. Which of these protocols is used to send email on a mobile device? Is it SNMP? Is it POP3? Is it IMAP? Is it SMTP? Is it HTTP? It's got to be one of those, right? We've got a bunch of different acronyms to choose from. One of those is used on a mobile device to do this. This is another important piece of information we need to know for our 802 exam. There's only one answer here for this one. For those of you asking in the chat room, I want which of these is used. So only one of these is used on a mobile device to send email. And this is a good one because it does. First, you have to understand what is used to send email, and you have to recognize that particular acronym. There is, in the 802 exam, an entire section on mobile devices, and this question is coming exactly from there. This is one where we have to know how to get the mobile devices working, where we go to configure them, how we handle theft of these mobile devices, what are the internal mechanics and electronics inside of these devices. There's so much technology built into our mobile devices, so there's an entire section on the 802 exam that talks about exactly that. And there is. So for this particular test, you will have to know about email, and you will have to know about email on a mobile device. So let's see how we did. Let's got about 85 folks that have answered. Chat room's wondering, how did we do? Well, we've got a smattering again of different answers here. We've got practically no one said HTTP. I guess I didn't fool anyone with that one. SNMP, same type of thing. Didn't really fool anyone with the SNMP piece. There's mostly, if we go to the number one answer, SMTP. Got 51%, but we still got good double-digit numbers for POP3 and IMAP. That certainly makes me wonder which one of these it could possibly be then. So let's look at email, because email on the mobile device, even email on a non-mobile device, can be very involved. So if we look at all of the different options available, we have first something called the Post Office Protocol 3, POP3. This is used for retrieving emails. This is not for sending. So this is only for grabbing emails from a server and pulling it down. And generally we have this POP3 set up so when you grab the emails and pull them to your mobile device, POP3 deletes those emails on the email server. He states that's not usually how we like to operate because we usually have multiple devices, which means if we were to retrieve these via POP3 and delete them on the server, those emails would only be on our mobile device. What happens when we go to our desktop? We would not be able to see those. So people generally will use a more intelligent email retrieving software, and they use something like IMAP. This is the Internet Message Access Protocol. This allows us to access the emails on a server. We can keep them on the server, which means that all of our devices are now accessing the same information in the same place. That becomes very, very useful to be able to do that. There is a number of things that you have to configure for retrieving these. Certain port numbers are standardized, but you may have to ask your mail provider exactly how to do that as well. There is also a set of email settings to encrypt things. There's an SSL. So if you're retrieving email, you want to make sure that you have that SSL enabled if it is a feature. That way you can be on a mobile device on a wireless network and no one would be able to see your email information going back and forth. There is also an important part about outgoing mail, and I don't have it written on this particular slide, but you can see down here on the right side, outgoing mail server, and that outgoing mail server is looking for an SMTP server, a simple mail transport protocol. This is the protocol for outbound mail. So even if you are retrieving email with POP3, you're retrieving email with IMAP, you're only going to be sending email with this SMTP. So this is the one where you want to have, in some cases, two different hosts. You're going to be retrieving from one server. You may be sending the email to the same server or to a completely different outbound server. That's the way my email is set up. I retrieve from one server. My outbound mail goes a completely different direction. In fact, I have a number of different email servers depending on how you're contacting me and how I'm sending that information out to you. So let's look at how we answered that one. SMTP, the D answer, 50% of you got that one absolutely correct. So that would be your place to go if you were trying to figure out how to send mail. You're going to need the SMTP server. That is one that's becomes incredibly important when you're setting up your device. Nothing's more frustrating than when you have that device and you're trying to send mail and send mail. It's not working. That's what you're going to want to look at is your SMTP server to see why your mail is not going out and working the way you would expect it to work. So a little bit of a troubleshooting tip for you, for those of you that are working on these pieces. So let's go to a networking question. We'll shift our gears back to the 220.801. Again, no answering in the chat room. Just a little reminder for those of you, a number of you have just joined us. So we wanted to remind you of that. And here's your question, bit of a networking question here, which is you need to access an internal company video server from the internet. Which of these router configurations would allow this access? And I've got a lot of possible answers for you. Again, only one of these is going to be the right answer. So I think there's where you want to really understand technologies on the networking side. So this is where you have got a video server and it's inside of your network, but you're outside of your network. You're on the internet side. So you're going to need to come through a firewall. Everyone has a firewall in the front. So you need to, or a router in this particular case. So this router/firewall needs to be configured to allow access to that video server. What do you configure? Your possible answers are, do you need to configure MAC filtering, port triggering, SSID broadcasting, QoS, port forwarding, or WPS? So I threw a lot of technologies at you right now. You have to go through and understand what each one of these do and be able to either dismiss it as not being a correct answer or absolutely choose that as being the correct answer. Got to wonder which one that's going to be. If you think you know the one answer for this particular question, go out to Socrative.com to the Professor Messer Room. You'll log in as a student and go to the Professor Messer Room, and you'll be able to answer and see if you know what the answer happens to be. I can cheat here and see how people are doing. I can sneak a view and to see how people are answering. There's a lot of things I threw in here. This is not just a simple A, B, C, D. You may get questions on your exam that have more than 4 possible answers. And certainly things like your performance-based questions may be asking you to set these things up. So there's one very specific set of technologies you need to understand. And there's certainly something that, in fact, I just set up this exact configuration. I was leaving for a number of days. I have a video server, a camera server that's inside of my internal network, and I needed to configure my firewall/router to allow me access to that server from the outside. So I used this particular feature of my router/firewall device to allow me access from the internet into that device. Now, of course, you need to have that device very secure at that point because anybody from the outside would be able to hit that device. So your authentication needs to be set up properly. We need to be able to access all of these things. That can be very useful. So let's see how we did with this one. I think there's a lot to look at. We've got a number of people that, how do you think we did? I think we did pretty well. Again, 56% of us said port forwarding if we go with the folks that are the number one answer on this one. But the number 2 answer is kind of a tie for second between MAC filtering, port triggering, and SSID broadcasting. So we've got a number of different options to choose from there. Which one would it be in this particular case? There's a lot to deal with when you're setting up a router/firewall configuration. And the one that we are most interested in this particular case is one called port forwarding. This is something that allows you to provide access to a device that's on the inside of your network, but you need to access it from the outside, from the public side. So if it's a web server, a gaming server, in my case, a video server, you want to be able to access those no matter where you are. So I can be on my mobile device, I can be anywhere in the world, and I can access that server all from this particular port forwarding feature. What it really does is take this external IP address that's on the outside of my network and allows me to say if I'm coming inbound on a particular port number, take that information and forward it on that port forwarding, forward that port to a device that's on the inside of my network. It can be a different port number. It can be a same port number. You can shift things around as it's coming through, but that becomes very, very useful. Some people might call this a destination NAT or static NAT because you're translating from the public side to the private side. This is generally when you start looking at the configurations of these on a small business device or a home firewall/router, it's going to be called port forwarding. This is how it works. Here's a nice view of the world. If you're out in the world somewhere and coming inbound, you're going to have this IP address you're hitting on the outside. And you're effectively doing a network address translation between the outside address to what the inside address might be so that the router or firewall knows where to send that traffic on the inside. You've essentially extended your public side into the inside of your network without having to change any IP addresses and make that happen. So a really useful function to be able to have that available. this is just one of the things that you have to keep straight in your mind. There's all these technologies with MAC filtering, port triggering, and all of these other pieces. MAC filtering is something you would do to filter out particular hardware devices. Generally, it's done on a wireless network. Port triggering is if you are on the inside of your network and you send information out, and that tells your device to enable this type of network address translation. Now, since we're on the outside, we don't have a way to trigger anything. We're all on the outside, so we can't do anything about that. Port triggering would not be the right instance in that case. SSID broadcasting is what you can enable or disable on your wireless access devices. Quality of service is how you configure or set the different priorities of traffic that are already going through your network. Has nothing to do with allowing access to certain devices. And WPS is a wireless function that allows you to set security and access. In fact, WPS should be something disabled in practically all of your wireless devices because there are significant problems with how WPS is accessed on those views. There are a lot of technologies here, And one of the things that folks told me very early on is they've gone through all of my videos, they look through everything that I'm making available, and there's a lot of things you'd have to write down and keep notes on. And you can certainly do that, go through all of my videos and write your own notes, but I've already also done that for you. If you wanted to get all of the important pieces of information from my machine, you wanted to grab all of the different pieces that are important from my videos, this is how you would do it. There is a lot that I've added into these course notes that are, I find, very, very useful. And I've done this for both my 801 and my 802 videos. There is for the 801, you can see I've got information in here about memory. There's information about parity, all the different connectors that you have to know about the A+ exam. And if I scroll down a bit, I'm going to just keep scrolling here. I've got information also down here. There's my laser printer piece. Becomes useful. The 802, all of your command line functions, all of the things you need to know about how Windows works, all of the Windows utilities, they're all in here. And so I've made these available in a PDF format, instantly downloadable, only for $10 for each one of these. And of course, all of this goes directly to keeping the website going. I don't charge you for my videos. You can watch those for absolutely free. So this is another way to give back and help keep things running. To learn more about that, go to professormesser.com/A+CN for my course notes, and you'd be able to also take advantage of those as well. Hopefully, a lot of you I know in the chat room, oh yeah, I got those. They're fantastic. I want to thank you also for your support for getting those already. Oh, Alicia already said, I grabbed them, printed them out, laminated them, and took them with me. These are something you can do with these. These are completely unprotected PDF files. You can put them on all of your devices, carry them with you wherever you happen to go. I want you to be able to use them and study from them. So that's one of the nice things about having them in a format that's digital, is you can decide how to best use them for you. So thanks again for your support, and thanks for considering the Professor Messer course notes. I have them not only for A+, Network+, Security+, Windows 7, and others as well. Well, let's get back to our question, shall we? Let's go to understanding more. This one sort of a networking question, but it's really in a different area of the A+ exam. Again, no answering in the chat room, but this is one where you have to know what I'm talking about to be able to even answer the question. So the question is, what would you need for a WWAN, a WWAN connection? Something is amiss here. There's not a lot here. Which of these would you need for a WWAN connection? Let's see what we would need. Would we need a WPA2 encryption? Would we need a crossover cable? Would we need a dial-up modem? Would we need an antenna, or would we need a smart card? Well, that's a very diverse set of things that I might need for WWAN. So of course, the first thing you have to know is, what's WWAN? What in the world does that happen to be? So you'd have to go and first know what that is. And once you know what that is, and stop Googling out there, you would need to then figure out the things that are in this list that apply towards a WWAN. This becomes pretty useful if you're using WWAN. In fact, you are required to have this thing. If you wouldn't just need it, you definitely have to have it to be able to do the WWAN. So go through those particular questions and see if you can find which one of those you might want to work with. And I think that's whenever I start looking at the questions on the A+, there are a number of questions you have to know, these terms that you have to know cold on the A+ exam. And that's where you just start working with them, understanding the technologies. Maybe you have some of these technologies, so it helps to learn more about what those things are. This is a technology I use. I just used it. I mentioned I went away for a number of days, and while I was gone a number of days, I was able to take advantage of this technology. So there's a little, I don't know if that's a hint or not, but there you go. That's at least something I can tell you about those pieces. The WWAN technology is one where you're going to need one of these. Is it the WPA2 encryption, the crossover cable, dial-up modem, antenna, and smart card? Let's see how we did. Let's go to the list. We've got a couple of things here to choose from. Would we need WPA2 encryption, a crossover cable, a dial-up modem, antenna, smart card? If we go with the majority, certainly 61 is the majority here. Antenna would be the answer, but 22% of you said WPA2 encryption. And 4% said crossover cable, 3% said dial-up modem, 10% said smart card. I guess we could count that in the double digits. So which one is it? We've got kind of a mix here. A quarter of you have said it's WPA2 encryption, but 57% have said antenna. Well, let's have a look at what a WWAN connection happens to be. This is a wireless wide area network technology. This is effectively you being able to use the network that is associated with your mobile service provider. So if in the United States, we have AT&T and Verizon and Sprint and all of those, the T-Mobiles of the world, they have given us some cards that we can put either in our laptop. This is the card from my laptop. And this card itself is one you might see these mobile hotspots. They're using wireless WAN technologies to be able to do this. This is where whenever you start looking at them, you're going to need some type of hardware. And because we're connecting to the wireless service provider's network, we're going to need an antenna. You have to either have an antenna. In the case of this particular device, you can barely see it. Let me zoom up. So on this device, in fact, you can see there's an antenna connection for main and an antenna connection for aux. There's an auxiliary antenna. And when you plug these into, this happens to go into a laptop. This happens to be a mini PCI. So you plug this into the laptop. There's a wire inside of your laptop that probably wraps around the LCD display at the top. And that connector's right there, right next to the interface. You plug it in, and now you have an antenna that's connected to the wireless WAN connection. This is where I really start looking and understanding how they work. In fact, on my laptop, I only need the software that comes associated with this particular adapter card to be able to make this work. So I don't even need any other type of wireless network. It's built into my laptop itself, which makes it very convenient, which means wherever I go, I have the ability to flip a switch and now I'm on that wireless WAN network, which means that I don't need 802.11 encryption. So for those of you that did answer WPA2 encryption, I don't need that for wireless WAN. That's not one of the things that I have to worry about. What I have to worry about is not a crossover cable. There's no cables involved. Not a dial-up modem. Certainly it's not a dial-up modem. And I don't need a smart card. That's more for encryption and other pieces to be able to do that. That's where, whenever I start working with these technologies, that's where I really focus on the pieces that I need to know. Smart card is a security type piece, so I don't have to worry too much about that. Antenna is the one. In this particular case, if you're one of the 57% of the folks that said antenna, you would be absolutely correct. So that's one of the things that you got absolutely right, the 58% of you. So good job on that one. And if you didn't get that one right, don't worry. There are plenty of things to work with on the exam. In fact, when you get one wrong, you tend to remember these things a little better, don't you? I think that's one of the things that I do anyway. Let's do another question then. We'll bounce back. I've got another one ready for you. And this one, I guess we're still talking about laptops here. This one is, which of these is used to power LCD fluorescent backlights? These backlights are the ones that are in an LCD, but something's powering them, right? They have to get power from somewhere. But what is it that provides that particular power? So is it an inverter, a converter, a multimeter, a transceiver, or a conditioner? It's got to be one of those, right? This is one where I would start getting into and working with these backlights. You're going to need to know this. And I was very specific on the kind of backlight. So you're going to need to know exactly which one of these, and there's only one you have to choose from. In this case, you can go to Socrative.com into the student login and go to the Professor Messer room to be able to answer this yourself. This is where I really start getting into and working with a lot of different technologies. And this is one you do end up seeing these days a lot more of in your repair rooms because it's the older machines that need these replaced. Some of the newer machines, you don't necessarily need these. We'll talk about that in a moment as well. There's a lot to go through with the laptop devices, and there's a whole section of the A+ exam where you do have to know about laptops. So there's a good way to do that as well. So how did we do on this one? We got about 70, 78 of you have answered this one so far. Let's see what the answer might be. And this one, it's vast majority, not just the over 50%, but 86% of you so far have said inverter. And 9% of you said converter. And then hardly anybody said multimeter, transceiver, or conditioner. Now, is this one of the cases where we have taken a particular technology and we've misunderstood what it happens to be? Well, let's see. Let's see if this is one where when you're working with this, what it happens to be. When you're working with backlights, especially the fluorescent lamps that are in the older LCD displays, you would work with an inverter. This is where the backlight is powered. That's because the fluorescent display that's in your laptop is one that needs alternating current. It doesn't work on direct current. And your computer, that big brick that's plugged into your computer, is converting the alternating current that's coming from the wall into direct current and plugging that directly into your laptop. And your laptop, everything inside of that uses this direct current, except fluorescent lamps. Fluorescent lamps need the other type of current. They need to convert back to AC to be able to use these, and you need an inverter to be able to do that. Sometimes when the inverter goes out, you won't get any light coming through anymore because the fluorescent lamps aren't working any longer, and the inverter is now not working. But if you look very closely, you can see information on the screen, very dim. And you'll notice it's there. The screen seems to be working, but the light behind it is not. We don't see much of these on newer devices anymore. The newer machines have LEDs to be able to have that light behind to send through on these LCD displays. Those LED, these light emitting diodes, use DC. So you no longer need an inverter and all of this voltage to be able to light up a fluorescent lamp. But at the time when we first were doing this, that was what we had. Those were the options available. So we don't need those options any longer. So for those of you that said inverter, which was most of you, you got that one absolutely right. I fooled nobody with that particular question. Let's do another one then. Let's keep going. Since I fooled nobody, let's get one that maybe would give you more of a challenge. And here's one that is about printers. We all love printer questions, right? I get a lot of people sending me questions about printers. So here's a good printer question. You've got this question: which of these would be categorized as a page description language? So which of these is a page description language? Is it Apple PostScript, the HP processing language, Microsoft XMS, or HP printer definition language? It's got to be one of these, right? You happen to know what these happen to be. If you really have a good idea, you've been working with these page description languages, you can do exactly this. So answer this on our Socrative site, no answering in the chat room. This is one I think people are going to have to really look at because these look like they could all be printer definition or page description languages: Apple PostScript, HP processing language, Microsoft XMS, and HP printer definition language. Got to choose which one that happens to be for those pieces. We really want to look through and figure those pieces out. there's a lot to look at on printers. In previous study groups, I did a lot with laser printers. I asked a lot of printers this week. It was printer week, I think. We're on that section of the exam for my daily pop quiz. So if you want to go back over the last few days, you'll see a number of printer questions popping up there. So if you're somebody that wants more work on the printer side, that would be another good way to do it. The A+ exam, in the chat room someone asked, these are all multiple choice here. In the A+ exam is not all multiple choice. There are a section of questions you'll get right at the beginning of the exam that are performance-based questions. So it's going to be a number of performance-based questions and then a number of multiple choice questions immediately after that. So it's one very good way to go through this. You'll need to understand different ways to answer these questions. And once we get into the second hour, I'll have people, or I'll show you the video that CompTIA made where they talk about performance-based questions and why those are useful and what they happen to be. They go through each possibility of what a performance-based question happens to be in this particular case. So that'd be a good one to look at. So let's see how we did. We've got a number of people that have answered this one. Is it Apple PostScript? We've got HP processing language, Microsoft XMS, HP printer definition language, and we are all over the place. We are really none of us were quite sure what the answer was. In fact, the chat room, someone said, I just closed my eyes. Michael said he just pointed an answer, and that was good for him. And that might help. That might be the one. But now you really have to understand these technologies. There are really three probably most common page description languages you'll run into. This is the language that the laser printer uses, or usually it's a laser printer. It could be any kind of printer. It's the language your computer uses to talk to the printer, because your printer, you're doing graphics in certain fonts and it's in a certain format. How does what happens on your screen suddenly show up on your printer exactly the way you had it? And of course, you've got all these different programs that you're using. How are all these other programs able to talk to this printer and have everything come out in the printer exactly the same way? Well, a good way to do that is to have a page description language. You have a printer driver that's able to talk to the printer, and the printer is expecting a certain language. And the printer languages that are most common would be Apple PostScript, the HP Printer Command Language, or PCL. You'll see that on your HP or .PCL. In fact, if it's a printer that can do either, you may see that it does PS or PCL. And Microsoft XML page specification is XPS, Microsoft XML page specification, not XMS. I kind of threw in some different wordings on this one. Microsoft XMS was the one that got 40% incorrect. 22% of you said the HP printer definition language. 15% of you said the HP processing language. It looks like that's offline. And the Apple PostScript is the actual correct answer, and it came in at 24%. So that was exactly the correct answer. If you answered A, Apple PostScript, you would have had that one exactly right, because there it is, Apple PostScript, right there at the top to be able to use that. In the chat room, we're talking about those performance-based questions and some of the things that you'll run into. And those are pretty important things to consider, these performance-based questions. Some of them are fill in the blank. Some of them are ranking or sorting out or even matching. You run into those from time to time. But some of them are set up to be a simulation of a real configuration. So they'll plop you down at a command prompt or in a Windows, and they'll have you perform a particular function. I think that's an important consideration when you're working through these problems of installing an operating system or understanding how some of these things work. You're going to need to be able to work on a real computer and do this as if you did this all the time. Well, my friends at GTS Learning have created a set of labs that are online. This is the GTS Learning Freestyle. You can find out about it at professormesser.com/freestyle labs, where all of the labs themselves are set up with virtual machines. And you really can't beat that. I'm running it on my screen. I'll show you this view right now. I'm running this. I'm starting up in a lab that's set up for user account management. And you can see the lab is here. It shows you the lab configuration itself with a domain controller, Windows 7 device, and an XP device. And it steps you through Exercise 1, what do you do? Well, you connect to the Windows 7 device, click Start, right-click Computer, select Manage. So they take you through the entire piece of this. There is a very useful way to be able to go through and use this. This is a real computer system live with full-blown operating systems. This is a virtual machine. It's not a simulation. It's not an emulation. It's a real live computer that's running out on the internet. One of the benefits of this, of course, is that I now don't need 3 separate systems. I don't need to install operating systems. I don't need to find a lab somewhere. I can simply go to a device like these domain controllers or Windows devices, and I can simply, we'll do the domain controller. It connects me to the domain controller device. And now through this remote desktop view that I have, I'm running Windows Server. Now I've also got configurations in here for a Windows 7 device, a Windows XP device. I didn't need those machines either. I can simply start on my Windows 7 device, manage it, and the labs go on and on with all screenshots and other pieces as well. So it's very easy for me to start working with this. Let's do the Windows 7. There's the domain controller. Here's the Windows 7 device. It says go to click Start, go to right-click the computer. And here we've got the pieces that are in here. I've got all of these now that I could start working with, and we're going to choose Manage. So I'm stepping through the lab, and it's a live operating system. It's a live Windows 7 device. This is very, very useful to have available. What's important is if you're wanting to use this capability and have these labs available and do this hands-on for the performance-based questions, I've got special pricing you won't get. If you go directly to the GTS Learning site, you get a pretty nice discount. It's only $99 for these freestyle labs. If you go to this link, professormesser.com/freestyle labs, and you can try them for free. There's a 1 hour's worth. So if you're someone who you'd like to try it out yourself, you're not sure, is this for me? I don't know if this will work for what I want. Try it out for an hour, run through a lab, see if this doesn't help you learn more about these technologies and getting ready for those performance-based questions. And I want to thank the folks at GTS Learning for helping to sponsor and support what we do and making our videos at Professor Messer as well. Well, let's go through and do some more questions, shall we? I've got plenty more for you. For those of you that are working on these pieces and going through these, these questions are things you're going to need to work with straight away. And here's another one. This happens to be more of a security question. I think this would certainly apply to some of the things that we're doing these days on our systems. Which of these security threats is effectively invisible to the operating system? If you happen to know what this is, go to the Socrative page. Again, no answering in the chat room. But this is one that really would become handy because there are a number of things to choose from. There's A is virus. Is it a malware? Is it a rootkit? Is it a worm? Or is this ransomware? This is going to be one of these to be able to work with. The security threats effectively invisible to the operating system: virus, malware, rootkit, worm, or ransomware. If you think you know the answer, go to Socrative.com into the Professor Messer room, click on that student login, and go to the Professor Messer room, and you'll be able to answer this as well. There's a whole section on security on the 22802. So you're going to want to also go through that and work with those pieces as well. I think whenever I start working with these, it becomes really useful. So answer those: virus, malware, rootkit, worm, or ransomware for those pieces. This is, I start looking at these and answering these. There we go. I think it's one that I have to know all of those technologies to be able to answer this question, or at least I want to be able to answer this question with at least some knowledge of what some of these are so I can dismiss it. So let's look at how we've done on this one. We've got security threats invisible to the operating system. How do we answer? Well, we've got certainly one that is more than anybody else. 70% said rootkit, 14% said worm, 6% said ransomware, 5% said malware, 4% said virus. So let's throw out those single digits. We've got 71% rootkit, 13% worm. So we've got a big number there for rootkit, and working with that, let's see if it really is the rootkit piece of it. In fact, if we look at rootkit, kind of comes from the name root in Linux. If you're the root, then you're the super user of the device. So the rootkit was one that gave you complete access to a particular system. Rootkits are ones that will modify or configure the core system files in your computer. We were talking earlier about LoJack for laptops in some ways being a rootkit because it's one that was I guess a good kind of rootkit. It sits in the BIOS. And when you start your operating system, it loads things into your operating system without the operating system complaining or knowing anything about it. In fact, if you would have no idea it was there if you didn't specifically turn it on and enable it. It's the ones that are doing bad work that get into your operating system and you can't see them, you can't scan them. It's kind of hard to figure out where they are. Very much of a challenge to get rid of a rootkit. That's why if you ever see that there's a rootkit in the wild, it's a big deal because these become very difficult to identify and very difficult to remove. Your antivirus utilities can't find them. Anti-malware generally can't find them. It becomes a bit of a challenge to find those systems. This is where you can some rootkits will hide themselves in plain sight. They will make themselves look very similar to the files that are already on your system. They might change one letter, or instead of an L, they'll put a 1. So when you're looking at the list, that looks like an absolutely legitimate function. But in reality, a rootkit is something that's very bad. And in fact, there's a very bad rootkit. I always go back to this one because it was one that, in fact, is still coming up. We still talk about this one when we talk about rootkits. Was in 2005, Sony, once upon a time, this may be hard to believe, we distributed music on a physical media, and it was distributed on a CD-ROM. CD stood for compact disc. When did this happen? Things are moving way too quick in our industry because obviously it's kind of even hard to find a traditional CD these days. You have to go to certain stores now to be able to find these pieces. The Sony, what they did was make it so that if you put this CD into your computer to play it, and a lot of people did that because the CD drives that are in your computer can certainly play music, they installed some software without your permission. Just put it on your system, and it allowed complete access to your computer. Any file, directory, process, or registry key that had $sys it managed to hide on your computer. So your operating system didn't even see it. The bad guys found this very quickly. They thought, this is fantastic. We can use Sony's rootkit to get into your system and start working with it. So Sony was forced to give a patch. The problem is that the patching system made another avenue for the bad guys to use. They effectively patched a hole and created another one at exactly the same time. So that didn't help very much. There was a big lawsuit, class action lawsuit. All the CDs were recalled. And don't you love a class action lawsuit? If you are someone who is affected by this rootkit, you got $7.50 and you got a free music download by your friends at Sony. They're looking out for you at Sony. They understood there was a problem and gave you $7.50 and a free music download. So that's how they resolved that particular rootkit problem. In fact, if you're watching this video for continuing education units, you'll want to use the term rootkit. You'll want to go to the Contact Us link at the top of the ProfessorMesser.com website, put your name in there, provide me with your email address, and put the word rootkit somewhere in there. I'm reading these, so if you want to put any note in there, I'm reading through all these and sending you these out manually. There is, just put the word rootkit in there and I'll send you back an email, which is a digital certification that says you indeed did watch this particular study group. There is, so let's see how we answered that one. If you were the 70% of people that answered rootkit, you got that one absolutely correct. And there was that one I think we knew pretty well. As you mentioned in the chat room, didn't we just talk about a rootkit earlier on at the very beginning of the study group? We certainly did. So somebody was listening on this. Just before I started the study group, there is a number of things that people will send me, either in the question that I send very beginning when people are registering for the study group, or it's a question that comes through just before in the chat room. And one of the things that people asked me is, how did I know I was ready to get ready to take my A+ exam? And I did that by effectively going through and looking through all of the objectives. One of the things CompTIA does a very good job with is they will give you every bit of information that you need to know to take the A+ exam. And I know that I mentioned this on every single one of my study groups, but this is a very good example. This week, somebody said, I got questions I wasn't expecting. They asked me about a topic that I just had no idea was going to be asked. And I asked, well, did you have a copy of the exam objectives? Did you go through those? Did you see that topic on your exam objectives? And they said, I don't know what you're talking about. Exam objectives? Do I need those? Well, yeah, you certainly do, because not only do they tell you the percentage of information at a very high level that you will get with the exam, they will tell you step by step everything you need to know. So for configuring and applying BIOS settings, installing firmware upgrades, flashing the BIOS, you need to understand BIOS component information, which is RAM, hard drive, optical drive, and CPU. You need to understand BIOS configurations like the boot sequence, enabling, disabling devices, date and time, clock speeds, virtualization support, and BIOS security like passwords, drive, encryption, TPM, and LoJack. We talked about a number of those today. So that's just a small example at the very beginning of the 801 exam. And if I can go through those and check those off, then I know that I'm ready to take my exam. And as you can see, there are a large number, very extensive and very detailed set of exam objectives available. If you don't have these, you need to get them immediately. Go to professormesser.com/objectives and I forward you off to the page on the CompTIA website, or just go to that Google machine, type in CompTIA exam objectives. It takes you directly to the objectives. In the chat room, Paul's asking, how often do these things change? Well, in the case of the 220-801 and 220-802, they have not changed since they were released. So nothing has changed with these. CompTIA does not tend to change these until they change the exam itself. So when the next version of the exam comes along, there will, of course, be a completely different set of objectives. But what they generally will do is once they release an exam set of objectives, they stay with that. That hasn't always been the case in the past, so you want to be sure to download the latest version. And CompTIA started to put version numbers at the bottom of every page so that you know which version of the exam objectives you have. Even though this says version 3, this was the version released on release day for the 801 exam. And that hasn't always been the case. CompTIA had a 700 series exam that after a year it was out, they changed the exam objectives pretty dramatically. They added an entire operating system. Windows 7 was added to this. So a very extensive change, and everybody had to go back and make changes to their materials, including myself and every book and everything that was out there. It was an enormous problem. So CompTIA stopped doing that. So finally, I got through all of these pages. I'm on page 13, and finally at the end of the exam objectives. I've just been scrolling this whole time. I don't think anybody else provides you with this amount of detail. So if you can go through all of these and check those off, then you will absolutely be ready to take your exam. So you should consider doing that for your next exam as well. I think that that's the way I knew I was ready, because I went through that entire list and I was ready to answer every single one of those questions because I was able to check off most of those objectives. There's a lot to consider for the objectives. Make sure you know them, and certainly go back to understanding what's there. Well, we've come to the end of 1 hour of our study group. We have a kind of an after show that we do where I'll open up the phone lines. It's open topics. Doesn't have to be about anything we've talked about today. It can really be about anything, but you can certainly go through and give me a ring if you're watching live. If you're here on the replay, you can, of course, stand by for those pieces. If you're here live, I'll be answering your questions in just a moment, but I do want to remind you that you can follow me on Twitter and get those daily pop quiz questions at professormesser.com/Twitter. There's also my YouTube subscription there on professormesser.com/YouTube. If you want to know more about those quick reference study course note guides, you can find those at professormesser.com/A+CN. And again, thanks to GTS Learning. Try their online labs for free at professormesser.com/freestyle labs. And I do one of these every month. You can find the exact dates at professormesser.com/calendar. They're also on the right side of my page to be able to see when these are. I already have the date up for next month, which is something I never do. So that's something you should have a look at to see exactly when the next one. You've come off of this one, and you can see that the A+ for next month is going to be on July the 11th. But of course, I do a Network Plus and a Security Plus study group as well. Next Saturday will be the Network Plus study group, and a week after that will be my live Security Plus study group. Well, that brings us to the end of this hour for the study group. Thanks for joining us live. Thanks for watching the replays. Thanks for supporting the website. We'll see you next time on the A+ study group. Thanks, everyone. Well, we've got phone lines that need to be open. Thanks, chat room, for hanging in there for the hour. Let's do phone lines, shall we? Let me find the link, which I've hidden somewhere in this mess of things that is on my screen, and see if I can call into my show and get the phone lines open. And you'll be able to call this number in just a moment, as soon as I figure out how to make this work. Let's do this. Boop, 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 boop. Okay, and
thank you for calling.
You're welcome. Okay, I need to type in that.
Enter your 6.
I will. 99 da 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 ba 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 74477.
Manage your callers from the call-in
Okay, did that work? Thank you, nice lady. Am I here? Yes, I am. So if you would like to call in, phone lines are open. We talk about anything. It's open phone lines at 855-785-7545. That's 855-785-RJ45. There is also absolutely free to do this over Skype. So if you're outside the United States and you can't call that 800 number, you can do this through the Skype with the +1 at the beginning. Absolutely free, no Skype minutes out of that. So becomes very useful to have this. Have I thought about a Google Plus handout study group? I don't know what that is. I don't know what a handout study group is. So I guess I haven't. I've never thought of that. So, but maybe you can describe what you're looking at there. The Google Plus is a bit of a challenge to work through those pieces. And I understand not a lot of people on the Google Plus. Google Plus, a wealth of information, and there needs to be more people using that. I really like Google Plus. They get rid of a lot of the nonsense that's over on Facebook. One of the things that I kind of have to do, I guess I don't have to, but I sort of have to, is I have to, of course, keep a presence where people are. So I'm on Twitter, I'm on Google Plus, I'm on Facebook. I'm checking into those often. So I would like to do more on the Facebook/Google Plus side. So that would be nice to do that. Let's go now to the calls though. I think I can pick up and answer the 703 area code, or so it says. Are you there, caller?
Oh, hey there.
Hey, hi, what's your name?
My name's Kyle.
Hello, Kyle. Have you called before, Kyle?
No, I haven't.
Okay,
actually.
so I didn't recognize the number, and I didn't recognize your name at all. So what can we do for you today?
Well, first off, I just wanted to thank you more personally for providing the services that you do. I recently just passed the A+ after studying on your website, crunching it in for about 2 weeks. So
congratulations.
I really appreciate what you've done.
Fantastic. Good to hear.
And my question kind of goes into finding a job, or how best practices to do so.
Good next step.
I've been in tech support for about 7 years now, but I want to move away from the call center side and kind of go into hardware support, and kind of helping the company's employees themselves.
Sure.
But I'm having one hell of a time trying to get an impact in there. It seems like all the entry-level help desk jobs are actually looking for experience with Active Directory and Microsoft Exchange.
Right.
Of course, that doesn't stop me from putting in applications here and there, but I just don't seem to be making an impact there. So my question is, how do I become visible to those companies? Is there any type of Active Directory classes that I can take, or anybody that offers a service similar to you for those courses?
You have to wonder exactly what they're asking for too. Are these particular job postings for a support role in these particular technologies?
Well, it's more, from what the postings sound like, is kind of like, help desk level 1, and they're typically entry-level jobs. Are looking for, a 2-year degree,
right,
and maybe 1 or 2 years experience with technical support, but then they have, preferred Active Directory or Microsoft Exchange. And it seems like I'm getting passed over by those other people.
Yeah, well, you got to wonder, though, exactly where these are coming from. We talk about this a lot in the chat on my site throughout the month, because sometimes you'll see these job postings and it's for entry-level tech support, and you need to know Cisco VSS switching technologies. You have to understand VMware. You have to understand Active Directory, have years of knowledge with Exchange, and you're wondering, what kind of person are they looking for? This person doesn't exist who's going to be in an entry-level role. So you do have to wonder, just how much Active Directory are they really talking about? Are they talking about understanding what it is and how it works and how to reset someone's password? Because Active Directory has such a broad term associated with it, because there's no way they're looking for somebody who has gone through one of the Microsoft Active Directory courses to work on a help desk, because Active Directory is just massive. There are, and I think I've said in other study groups, there are people that their only job is to go from place to place and do consulting on Active Directory, because it can be remarkably complex, especially when you start working with multiple Active Directory forests and you're working to try to merge some of these trusts together. It is extremely complex. So I would think for a help desk job, if they really are looking for Active Directory, they want you at least to be familiar with what Active Directory is, be able to search through maybe the list of people in an Active Directory database, find a particular user, reset their password, and look at what groups they belong to. That's kind of the extent of it. You could probably even learn that by watching a couple of YouTube videos, and in 30 minutes, you have everything you need to know about working in an Active Directory environment on the help desk. But you don't know without asking them, and maybe clarification is in order. If you happen to know who's got the job posting, you could certainly send them an email and say, I saw this posted. What are you really looking for? Or you could simply say, if you're working in an environment now where you're doing that, yep, I got experience there. Yep, absolutely. In fact, the more yeses you can answer on that list, yes, I do have Active Directory experience, because I can look through the database, I can find a user, I can put them in a different group, or I can see what their permissions happen to be. And maybe that's all they're looking for, but it certainly qualifies as Active Directory experience. Don't worry so much about the details of what they're asking for on their job description. And I think you're doing the right thing. Just send in the resume or the CV with those things on it, so that when they receive it, they go, oh, you have Active Directory experience, check. We're going to now accept your resume, and you get through the first phase. And now you can go to the second phase, where somebody's really going to ask you, how much Active Directory experience do you have and what have you done with it? And then you'll be able to answer that truthfully. Don't obviously go through and say that you have experience if you have no idea what Active Directory is. But you can obviously answer these questions with, yes, I have at least some, so I qualify for this particular position. I don't know if that's something that helps, but it certainly gets you through the first step of that. And let me sort of ask a question back to you. What type of thing do you want to do next? So if you're at a help desk answering questions now, you had mentioned hardware. Is there a specific kind of hardware, things you want to be able to do with that?
I want to step into the basic help desk role. Someone inside the company has an issue, I go over to their PC or check the trouble ticket and take care of the problem. And then after that, I'd be able to expand on my existing experience and move into more of an administration role.
Perfect. Yeah, and I think that's a good next step from getting off the phones and actually going face to face. And if you're in a relatively large organization or even a medium-sized organization, the IT group has people that do exactly that. And maybe this is one of those cases, even especially if it's in your organization now, it should be very easy to find the person who has that particular job opening and ask them, what are you looking for in this? What can I do to make myself more appealing to these positions that are coming open? Are you having other openings for these positions in the next 3 to 6 months? What should I be doing? And get in front of them. You could even do the same thing if it's outside your organization. I've mentioned this in other study groups. There are a number of user groups that you can attend probably in your geographical area, because there's always a Microsoft user group, a VMware user group, a generalized IT user group somewhere in your geographical area. And the people that attend those are very often the people that are helping to make hiring decisions, either participating in the interview process, or they're ones that are making the final decision on who they hire. And that's a great place to start networking if you're trying to get out of that rut of just sending all the resumes in, going to a website, filling out that horrible form, attaching the PDF or the Word document, and sending these things in and getting no response. Then you need to approach it from the other angle as well, which is meeting these people face to face, finding out, well, what are you doing at your site? I'm working in technology now. Are you guys doing much on the help desk side? I'm looking for more of a support role, remote role. What are you guys offering? You doing any of that these days? Who should I talk to? Is there an email address? Should I pop a phone call into somebody and find out what they're doing? And that gives you an option, or at least an opportunity, to not only know if they have any positions that are open, who is doing this, what type of things are they looking for, and then you can send an email directly and say, hey, I spoke to Bob at the Microsoft meeting. He said I should give you a call, or I should send you an email, which is, if you can reference someone else, it always helps getting that foot in the door. And you can ask, what do I need to know to be able to meet what this role requirement happens to be, and work along those sides. I think that's I've been to a number of these user groups, and it seems they set aside an entire group of sides to do exactly that, because the people that are in those positions are also looking to network and find out what other positions are available in the same geographical area. So everybody's there to learn the technologies and learn more about what they can do to get that next position. That might be something to consider as well.
That's great advice. Where would I go to find out about user groups in my area?
There is the one place I normally start is meetup.com. It's not a foolproof method, but it is a very good method at finding people and groups. It's more of a generic, it's not a technology site about technologists, but very often the technology user groups will put their meeting information in meetup.com, and then you can find them very easily for your area. And of course, you can find other things in there as well, but that's another good place to do it. And go to the very large companies, generally have something that's more formal. So you can easily Google the Microsoft user group, VMware user group. If you're into networking, Cisco user group. Those are the big three that I will run into. Another one, I'm trying to remember the exact one. This is more security that I've been in. For the last place I was, we did a lot of security. So if you're somebody who's trying to find a security user group, there's the Information Systems Security Association, or ISSA.org. That's a little bit outside the scope of what you were asking for, but that's another one that is not a vendor user group, but more of a generic user group. And if there aren't any in your area, use meetup.com and make one. There are a lot of choices out there for doing that piece. Maybe you're the one that starts the ball rolling, get a bunch of people together, you have a pizza and you talk about what are your technology challenges, and that's the way you meet other people. Very often that's a great way to get your foot in the door by you doing it yourself. So there's a couple of options available.
All right. Well, excellent. That really, really helps.
let's go through that process. If you're running into any roadblocks or you want some other ideas, and this really applies to anyone who is out there watching or listening to the study group, go to the top of the Professor Messer website, click Contact Us. What that really means is contact me, because all this comes directly to me, and ask, because I've got other people in the industry I know who do these study group or do these user groups, who participate in the user groups. They can also give me some other ideas that I could pass along to you.
All right, excellent.
Thanks for calling. Appreciate
thanks for all the information, and thanks for the website.
And congratulations on your A+ again.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. There's a lot of study group or user groups that are out there. I used to present a lot of user groups because I was on the vendor side. And a lot of them I was doing was on the security side. But that's a very good example of those pieces, of trying to find the right place to find those pieces. And it can really be pretty handy. Let's go to another call. Where am I? I'm right here. I think it's the 760 area code. Are you there, caller?
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks for holding.
Which was what that guy was referring to, specifically Hangouts on Air is what you would probably use.
Oh, that was the question from the study group earlier. Hangouts on Air. Is that what the question was with Security Plus, or the Google Plus?
Yes. Also, by the way, I love the G4 Cube in the background.
Yes, that was this studio I put together a number of months ago when I started planning. I did a full new studio build. And one of the things I really wanted, this is sort of a callback to my very aged days, was a cube. I wanted a cube. It took me a lot of eBaying to really find one, and it's completely, it works perfectly. I can plug it in. I got to find a connection that will handle the video output from this, but I can plug it in. It works perfectly. It's one that I'm happy to have back there, and it's one that I do pull it out every once in a while just to play around with some of the old operating systems.
Like OS 9?
It is running OS 9, and that's I should take some video of it and just do it on a live stream someday. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I have an iMac G4 running OS 9 and 10.4 Tiger, OS 10 Tiger. Also, a couple more serious questions here. First off, would you consider doing guides for, say, the Apple, certifications? This
is one that it does come up from time to time, and it's one that I have considered. For those that watch the pre-show, you know that in front of me is an iMac i7 and a separate Mac display. All of my video content is created, edited, and everything I do on my desktop, my primary desktop, is OS 10. Got everything that you've seen with the presentations was done on a MacBook, and I've got of course Windows systems that I use. The video switching system that you're viewing this on is a Windows system. My website is Linux. I don't focus on any one operating system, and I have considered doing some Apple specific certification courses. The big challenge with that, of course, is the number of people that would be watching it. And it's an interesting balancing act that I have, because I want to be able to provide videos that people can use, certainly, but I have to make sure that there's a certain number of viewers of those videos, because the videos are there and to help keep everything else going, because I provide the videos for free. So there's advertising and things on my website that I use to help provide that. But I have considered Apple in the past. When I last looked at it, it was probably a year ago, and I really need to go back and I will do this from time to time. I'll look at all of the different technologies out there, the different certifications that are available, and I'll try to figure out which one of these makes sense. If I had to rank these from 1 to 10, which ones would I put as my top 3, and then the ones that are below that? And I try to adjust these around every year or so. And I think it's probably about time to do exactly that. But I've considered it. It's just not one that has ever come to light quite yet.
Yeah, though, with Apple exams, you probably have to update it year to year, because, they release a new OS every year, like El Capitan's coming this fall,
Right. Yeah, I watched with great interest this week on the live stream.
My other question is, when I am studying for my A+, when I do get my A+ certification, I'm probably going to look for my first job. Can you give me some advice about, getting A+, going straight into your first job?
And this is something that does come up also in questions that people sent in this week for the study group, and trying to figure out what do you do to get that very first position. And I always see the arguments also on the Facebook and on the Twitter where people are discussing the value of certifications, the value of a formal education, and trying to compare these things. And it is impossible to compare these different pieces. And generally, I separate these out into three different categories. I think that you need to have a formal education of some kind, whether it's a 2 or 4 year degree. With technology, formal education is not something that is a 100% requirement, but it really helps when you're trying to get that first job, and it really helps when you're trying to move up after that. And there's a whole set of arguments we can have about whether a formal education is worthwhile or not. And ultimately, you want to be able to impress the people that are doing the hiring, and currently formal educations and having those degrees certainly help. The other piece is the certifications. If you're going up against everyone else who already has this formal education, it's nice to show that you have some interest in a type of technology. A+ is a very good entry level or first start certification, and that's the one that I think most people strive towards. What I've seen a number of people do, and you do have to watch out for this, is over-certifying yourself before you even have your first job. I think having an A+ and maybe a Network Plus would be a good 1-2 punch when you're walking in the door for your first IT position. But if you've also got a Microsoft Windows 7 and a Security Plus, and you're working on your Cisco CCNA, and you've now gone way outside the scope of what entry level is, and now the person hiring you is concerned that perhaps putting you into an entry level help desk role is going to bore you and you'll be gone in 3 months. They have to think about finding the right role for you. And if you're touting all of these more advanced technologies, you tend to overqualify yourself for a particular role. This is an absolute reality, and you have to really watch out for. And the other piece that is the thing that everyone says, I'm still here. So the thing that I think that everyone else often says, I need to have this, and this is more important than anything else, is experience. But of course, that is the thing that you're trying to get so that you can have it. It's that catch-22 with those pieces. So you do run into a challenge getting the experience, but having all three is fantastic. If you have a way to intern or do volunteer work at a local area, maybe there's a place that has a nonprofit, a charity, a church, a school that needs IT help to keep systems running. That might be an easy way to get maybe work for free or work for very little, and then be able to get a little experience there that you can at least put on a resume, and then say, yeah, I worked with an environment. Here's where I worked. We had 20 machines. I maintained all of their systems. I did their backup systems. I maintained their antivirus and kept that up to date. I loaded new applications. So you at least can show that you had certain projects and certain things that you were doing. I think there's that those three things are what you should focus on when you're trying to get that first position. You should be able to have as much of those in each of those three categories as possible.
All right, I have one last question, major question, is that it's the one I submitted when I tried to get the notification, and that is, can I call somebody and say, hey, I want to take the A+ exam, when will be a good time? Can I do it at any time, or do I have to wait for a specific date?
Well, you certainly can do, you mean just the scheduling part of trying to find a place and trying to have that available?
For actually taking the test, like do places have certain dates where they offer it, or can you set it for every day, for any day you wish?
Pretty
much.
It depends on where you live and where the different areas are, different companies are that provide this. All of the CompTIA certifications and actually taking the exam, going to a place, and currently for A+, you have to go to a place that has a room that's specialized to be able to take the exam. You can't currently take the A+ exam online. There are a number of people rolling out those types of exams where they're watching you through your camera. Can't do that with the A+. You have to go somewhere. The thing that then becomes the issue is some of these places that provide the exam only do it on certain days, and they are organizations that are managed by the folks at Pearson VUE. Pearson is doing all of the organizations. Usually, it's IT training companies that will set up an area for these certifications. And they, of course, are open on certain days, closed on other days. And of course, you have to be able to get a certain block of time set aside just for you. On the Pearson VUE website, if you go to the CompTIA website, they will take you through. There's a link there. In fact, let me find it. I know you can't see this on the phone, but you'll be able to watch it on the replay. If you were to go to the CompTIA A+ page, and go to their certification options, there is a section on there for find a. Oh, well, great. Here's what I get. They knew I was doing a study group, because here's what I get when I go to the CompTIA website. The service is unavailable. So when that service becomes available someday, you will be able to go there, and there's a link on there to find a place to take your exam, and it pops open a search screen, and you can type in your address or your local information, and it shows you all of the different places that are near you, and you can drill down into them and see what days are usually available to take the exams. And once you start scheduling the exam online, they can also bring up a calendar, and you can specify what days and times you'd like to do. So you've got a lot of flexibility there through Pearson VUE, and they've got everything online. You can even go in and reschedule if you're coming up before 24 hours and you're thinking, oh, I'm just not ready. You can go online and change when the date is. So it's a pretty nice system they have ready, and you can look at all the different places in your area and figure out which one's going to work best for you.
Yeah. One last thing before I go. I've been to Tallahassee. You live in Tallahassee, right?
I do. The worldwide headquarters is in Tallahassee, Florida.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been down there for a Miracle League thing, and that is a very beautiful town. In fact, that Miracle League area, that Miracle League thing, is right in the shadow of Doak Walker. And I actually met, Maurice Mitchell?
I
heard of him?
I don't recognize the name, no.
He's a track and field person, ran at the 2012 Olympics, went to Florida State. Yeah, I met him there. That's pretty awesome. I know an Olympian. All right. Anyways, thank you for helping me out with those questions, man.
Thanks for calling, and best of luck. I really do need to do more with getting outside the room every once in a while and seeing what's in the local area. I grew up just outside of Tallahassee. I lived in Miami for a while. Now the headquarters is here in Tallahassee. I was thinking the other night, we're sitting around going, where would we have this thing if not for Tallahassee? And we really couldn't come up with a place. So it's one of the gems of the United States anyway. I like to think so. And certainly I'm also a Florida State University graduate, so that has part of it in my mind to see what's going on locally. And thanks for calling. That was one that whenever I start working on these study groups, it's always nice to have people who are indeed calling in. Always has such a difference whenever you have the callers. Let's go back to these pieces. I think we have another call. Let me drop that gentleman. And we've got other folks that are on the calls. We've got some folks that are dialing in. Let's go to the 856 area code. Are you there, caller?
Hello, Dr. Musser. How are you? This is Gene from Jersey. How are you doing today?
Gene, doing fine. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. I spoke with you around close to this time last year, maybe even been in July, and I shared with you I was preparing for my CompTIA A+ certification. But since then, things happened, got busy, So now I'm actually ready to do the 801 in about 2 weeks.
Okay.
I want to thank you for clarifying in the study group port forwarding and port triggering. I did well on the Socrates test. However, I still was a little confused with it. But by you saying triggering is in the inside, now I got it. And now I know when to use triggers when I'm inside my firewall instead of outside. So that just clarified it so much for me. So thank you.
Fantastic.
My question to you, Dr. Messer, is I'm a little twisted with the IP range when it comes to the network identifying it. For example, if I'm using the 192.168 IP address, I'm not sure if this 00, that's the range. Where do it come in where you can't show the first? I'm not even sure how to say it, because I thought you couldn't use the first and the network IP address. That's probably where I'm confused at.
In fact, it sounds like that's one where you're talking about specifically the public addresses and the private addresses that you would use to configure on your network. Fortunately, on the A+, we don't have to go into such detail on the networking side. You don't have to be able to do any extensive subnetting that you have to do on the Network Plus or perhaps even on the Security Plus. You just have to know what some of these ranges are. And it's one that, unfortunately, it's just rote memorization. It's painful that you have to memorize what these exact ranges are that are public and private. In fact, the private addresses are the ones we call RFC 1918 addresses. And I've got on my in my course notes and on my video, I'm showing the slide from the video here. I show you the exact address ranges just spelled out. So anything that is a 10.0.0.0 through 10.255.255.255 is a private address. And I also show it with the CIDR block notation. I show it with the subnet mask, so you can see it in different forms. But I think when you're first learning it, it would be good to have this entire range so that if somebody presented to you, is the address 10.4.3.7 a private address? Well, you would say, well, it does fall in that address range, so therefore, yes, it is a private address. And it's the same thing with the 172.16.0.0 through 172.31.255.255. So you do have to have some familiarity with the numbering system and what you would expect to see. As long as it's between those two ranges, it's private. And of course, the 192.168.0.0 through 192.168.255.255 is the other private range. Those are the three that you should know. So you should find a bunch of IP addresses or have someone write down a bunch of public and private IP addresses. You should be able to pick out which ones of those are private and which ones of those are public. And that's really, I think, the extent that you would need to know RFC 1918. We use RFC 1918 addresses in networking in quote unquote the real world all the time. It is a very common way to address information on a private network. If you're walking into any company, they're either going to be running a 10. network, a 172. network, a 192.168 network, and they're going to be using them somewhere in their environment. Sometimes they're using all three. Probably most people are using the 10. Or networks to define their private networks. And it is, I wish it made sense. There's no way to look at that list to go, how'd they come up with these? Is there some binary thing? Nope. They just chose some ranges. That is the knowledge they went through. So if you're trying to figure out why is this not making sense, because it doesn't. It is just a set of ranges that I think at the time was the easiest ones to use because these were in use as public addresses. We had to carve them out. And people had to re-IP their networks because now we moved those into the private world so that IPv4 could stick around for a while. And that's why it's sort of a random set of numbers, it seems, because those were the ones that seemed to be most available, causing the least amount of disruption out in the real world.
That's great. You're the best. Thank you for that clarification. Finally, Dr. Messer, the one thing I'm a little concerned about, once I complete the 802 after taking the 801, what the first gentleman had said earlier, I believe his name was Cal, when he was talking about going into the workforce. I'm looking at the Net Plus next, but I'm also considering, similar to what he said, getting interested into some of the Microsoft certifications.
Sure.
I know there's some that is really expensive. Do they have one that maybe consists of maybe a two exams instead of having to take 4, 6, or 8 exams to complete one certification?
They have a few like that. A lot of the Microsoft exams, though, that are like that, where you have 2 exams. A good example are the Windows 7 MCSA exam. I don't want to speak wrong because they changed all of their exam names in the past few months. But Microsoft, for instance, the Windows 7 is the 7680 and the 7685 or the 686. There's some other options you can take in there. Those exams are very, very difficult exams. They're some very advanced exams, so it wouldn't necessarily be somewhere where you would start. Microsoft has other exams called the MTA exams that are the entry-level Microsoft technology. MT is the Microsoft Technology Associate or something of that sort. And those are their entry level. So you could say, I know the entry level, the basics of Windows because I took the MTA Windows. I think there's an MTA networking, for example. They're kind of a step lower than the CompTIA in many ways, but they really focus on the Microsoft technologies. One thing I would recommend doing is, in fact, you have some time right now, is go find the job postings that are out there. Go out to, the Monsters and the Dice and the Career Builder and wherever you happen to go to look at these different openings. See what people are asking for. It may be that nobody's asking for Network Plus and everybody's asking for MTA. Maybe that nobody's asking for MTA and everybody's asking for Network Plus. And it's usually, interestingly enough, very geographical. Inside the United States, it tends to be very uniform. When you go outside the United States, it's more geographical than others. But it would be useful and worthwhile to start doing some research to see what are people looking for. And then I should be able to, in my mind, they're asking for more Network Plus than they're asking for MTA networking. So I really should focus on my Network Plus. But you would at least have some hard knowledge, some hard numbers that you could look at and go, yes, I'm making the right decision. That's where I should go with those pieces. And like I told Kyle, it's never too late to attend one of these user group meetings and ask them what they're looking for. Very often, what's in a job posting is different than what they really need in their organization, which is horrible, but that's unfortunately the reality of the world, especially if you find out, we've got a big project coming up. We're implementing virtualization or voice over IP or this other technology. We really need people that are focusing on those technologies. And you can say, I need to go get VMware, Cisco, Microsoft, or whatever it happens to be, and make yourself a little more marketable towards that particular position.
I appreciate that, Dr. Messer. You've been a great help. I will call you back and let you know how I did on the 801.
I'd love to hear about
great things on it.
Absolutely. Please let me know. Good talking to you.
You too. Bye-bye.
There's a lot to deal with when you're getting into these exams. And I think going through and really getting into what people are looking for, we don't do enough of. Do the research. Find out what people are asking for. Don't be afraid if you're meeting them to ask them about that. Oh, yeah, I saw a job opening at your company. They were looking for these people on the help desk. Sounded like they needed somebody who knew Active Directory. You guys doing a lot with Active Directory? You think those folks need to know those types of things? Ask them. They will tell you those pieces. Let's go to the 702 again. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Hello?
Hi, I hear you. What's your name?
Hi, Sarah. My name is Husam.
Hello, Husam.
How are you doing?
Thank you for calling. What can we do for you?
Yeah, thanks. I'm very happy to talk with you. I'm sorry my English is not perfect, but I want to know something.
Yes.
I'm start studying the book, okay? The 8 editions, okay? I have arrived for about to chapters 21.
Okay.
Okay. But it's so difficult for me. I'm start watching these videos about Professor Messer. Okay, what can I do? My question is, what can I do? I'm continue studying this book and see these videos, or what can I do?
This is a common problem.
The book,
These books are especially some of the books that people tout the most for the A+ exam tend to be the most difficult books to read through. In fact, I went through one that is considered to be what everybody says is the book to read for A+. And I was flipping through it, a portion of it yesterday, and thinking, wow, this is going deep into the details in excruciating detail of what you need to know. So I'm not surprised that you're reading some of these books and wondering, how in the world am I going to pass this exam? And one of the things I highly recommend to folks is to get as many different books as possible. So for this particular caller, for those of you that were listening, I probably had a better audio connection than you did, is that he was reading these books and incredibly complex detailed information. He started watching some of my videos and trying, but going back to the book, it became very difficult to follow. So I would recommend go look at other books that are out there. Read through some of the Amazon pieces. Try to get a better understanding of what people are saying in the reviews of those books. I started when I got my very first A+ certification, which was the 600 series. That certification, I read through a book for the very first time, read through the entire book, and thought, wow, that was a difficult read for me. And I had two books. I picked up the second book, started reading through that, and it was a much easier read. It was easier for me to read through that book, and I felt like I understood it better. I don't know if that was the case because I just read the other book, or if this book just was really written better for me. I think it was really the second part. I think it was really written better for my style of that piece. So that's my biggest recommendation for you, would be to go out, try a different book, see what other options are available out there. And of course, you've got the videos available, so you can watch the videos. I've got the closed captioning there and the transcripts. So if you're trying to hear what I'm saying, you're not making it out, I've got them written down. So you can, of course, reference that as well. That may be one of the best things you can do, is to just grab a different book, because I've had the experience where it's much easier reading through those different books than it is trying to understand one that was difficult to begin with. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Sir, you can send me the name of the book. Can I buy it and read it? It's so easy for me.
The one that I have, I don't know that there is a specific book I can recommend. The one that I created the videos from is from GTS Learning. So if you go to professormesser.com/GTS Learning, and there's a link on my A+ page at the top of my website. There's an A+ resources page that you can go to. I'll pull this up on my screen for those of you that are watching. And you can see that I've got a number of different study materials that GTS Learning offers, but you don't have to even focus on that one either. You could go to a number of different sites and different books to go through. I think I can probably get rid of the chat, but under A+ training is an option for A+ study resources. And if you go there, you'll see the book that I recommend. That's the one.
I see your videos is so helpful for me.
That's
you understand. I see your videos. It's so helpful for me.
Great.
But I need that. Yeah. One book just for read it. I don't know. You can send me one email for the name for the book. I can buy it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's good.
Go to the top of my website and click on Contact Us. Send me a link there. Say what was the book you were referring to, and I'll send you a link to this, and you can try it out. I think they even have a sample you can download to see if it's one that makes sense for you.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for calling. Best of luck with it. Thank you. I had to try. I think I read through 3 or 4 other books in A+ just to figure out, am I missing something? It seemed to be more difficult than what I was reading through, and I just had to find the right book to figure out those pieces. It was little bit of a challenge to be able to make that happen. There is on the A+ exam a number of books I like. So folks in the chat room going, well, you're not mentioning any of the good ones. And it's because I really have not read through a lot of the most recent ones to be able to do that. That's why I go out to, what I do, you go out to Amazon, you read what other people are saying about it. I look at the 5s and I look at the 1s. What if the people really like it? What do they really like about it? The people that hate it, what do they really hate about it? And then you have to decide fact from fiction from those pieces. That's one of those that is what I go through to figure out and make those pieces there. I think that's very useful for me. There's another one. The folks in the chat room said they tried the A+ for Dummies. I like the A+ for Dummies back in the 600 series days. That was I think the one that I read second was the A+ for Dummies book, and I had a similar experience where it really went right to the detail of what I was looking for. So maybe that would be a good one to look at. The GTS Learning book is one that I use. They're nice enough to provide me with their books prior to release. I make the videos from the content in their books, so it's something I can easily do that. There are not really any free books out there on the web for A+, at least not anything that I have found to be either timely or accurate or readable. There's just not a lot out there. The only thing I can really recommend is to get something from a book publisher. Those are the really good books, and they're not that expensive. Some of them are $20. Some are less than $20. Like the Exam Cram books. I've mentioned before the Exam Cram practice questions book for A+. I really like. Those are the ones where I think that I really like going through all the questions, the Q&A for those pieces to make that happen. Okay, the phone lines are actually open, and I still have a voice to be able to go through this. While we're doing that, I have questions that you have sent me. It was the ones where you went through this month, and you sent me a list of those. Let's pull up some of the questions that you have provided to me. There were, we did a lot of them. What I try to do is in the study group itself, I make questions, the ones that we go through based on the questions that you're sending me. So I take your question, I spin it around to be a multiple choice question. So of course, I can only address a certain number of those during the actual study group, but it's useful to have that there. So let's pull up the ones that you sent to me, and we'll step through those very quickly with those pieces. Yes, if you run into a book that is from a college course, those do tend to be a little bit. Some of you don't have questions when you register for this, and you put in just anything. Some of these are very amusing. I'm not going to share which ones I found to be amusing because I don't want to encourage anyone. But that one was one of the first ones on my list was quite amusing. How to practice and get comfortable with IP addressing. I think I mentioned earlier in that call from Gene that there's not a lot of IP addressing you have to worry about on the A+ exam. It's more memorization of API-PA addresses, memorization of the private address schemes, memorization of class A, B, C, D, and E. If you know those, you're good. And unfortunately, it's just rote memorization. If you don't do a lot of networking, it may be a little bit more of a challenge. Maybe that's when you get your flashcards out and somebody says, give me the class A address range, and you have to be able to know that address range. There are the other pieces with this. A lot of people were asking about, and I mentioned this earlier in the study group, the 800 series and what the next version will be, because we all think there will be a next version in the fall or the winter, according to what CompTIA has told us. We don't know what's going to be on it yet. I think some people in the chat room were saying, hey, here's something that's going to be in the new exam, but we don't know yet. CompTIA has not released what the new exam is going to be. We don't know yet what the operating systems will be on there. We don't know what may be added or what may be removed. We're just not sure yet. So we will know soon in the next upcoming months. CompTIA tends to release an updated version of the exam objectives, or they have in the past, before the exam has gone live. So you tend to have a little bit of room of runway before going live with those pieces. So that's where I would focus. Just keep checking back with CompTIA and see when those updates are available. Will I be doing Windows 8 classes? I don't have any plans to do a Windows 8 course, like a Microsoft Windows 8 course. If Windows 8 happens to be on the next A+ exam, I will certainly have Windows 8 information on there. I would think that it would at this point, don't you? We just aren't sure exactly what's going to be on there, but I would think Windows 8 would certainly be on there since Windows 8 has been around for so long. So if they do, I'll have Windows 8 there as well. A lot of people asking about the pieces associated with performance-based questions. And I promised you at the beginning of the study group that I would give you that link on YouTube for the performance-based question. So let's do exactly that. Let me see if I can find it. What I don't want to do is go through my YouTube history because it would make everyone crazy. Like, why are you watching so many kittens? What is wrong with you? But I bet I can find the exact. I have saved it off. Let me find. Here's the problem. Is I go out to go out to YouTube, and all I pull up when I'm looking for CompTIA stuff are my videos. So that's a bit of a problem when that occurs. Let me find out where I stuck it. Whenever I go through, I used to bookmark everything, and then I would be on a different machine. This was before bookmarks really synced up between everything. And I would run into challenges because I wouldn't be able to read the bookmarks across different machines. And so I'm a big user of Instapaper. I use that a lot. This video is called Taking a CompTIA Exam. Let me do two things on my screen. Need to do this. Taking a CompTIA exam. If I search for that, search, and it's the first one that comes up that is not a sponsored, and it has this lovely music, which you can't see.
Are you wondering what it's like to take a CompTIA
I
exam?
am.
This video
That's
will
not
show
the right
you the
video.
different
There we
exam
go.
features and types of exam questions.
Good.
The first item
They
you'll see
really
in
do
the
take you through the exact exam details. Shows you the candidate agreement. I'm going to skip ahead. They show you the review screen, multiple choice questions, fill in the blank questions, drag and drop questions. Here's an actual simulation. You have to move things around and drag it. Here's a command line that they give you. You have to know the command line pieces. So they really do a good job of stepping you through what you would expect to see in a performance-based question. And so if you were trying to figure this out, and those pieces that are there, that's where you would go through all of those pieces. And it's called Taking a CompTIA Exam. It's from the CompTIA YouTube channel. So it's an official YouTube one. So that's one that I do like to use to tell people this is what you can expect from a performance-based question directly from CompTIA. They will tell you, and then you'll know everything you need to know about learning that exam. So that's a very useful piece. There are people even asking in the chat room about the studio. This comes up from time to time, and I mentioned to people last month that I was going to do a video that showed what all of this stuff is. And I still have plans to do that. One thing that has happened through this week, you can't really see it. In fact, I'm not even sure you can really see it here. Maybe you can, maybe you can't, is that the lighting has been moved. I used to have everything on the floor. So everything now is up high. It's up off the floor. I have a rail system where everything hangs from the ceiling on pantographs. So I'm in the midst of getting those things done. And as soon as I get those finished, I have one more light to put up. As soon as I do that, I'll do more of another video that shows what I've got here, where I got all these things, what chair this is. This is not a Herman Miller. chair. This is Staples. Staples is where that one's from. But it's very comfortable. I've considered getting one of those Herman Miller Aeron chairs, but that seems to be a little. That's a lot. That seems to be a chunk of change. Not ready for that one yet. I'm ready to spend that on video materials, video content, rather than the chair that I'm in. There is a lot of other questions that people sent in, though. Just checking. That is where I do want to have all of my focus. So let's look on these pieces. We talked about IP addressing. That one was covered. We talked about books. How current are the exam questions? Well, you don't have to worry about that. The exam questions themselves, what we really believe is CompTIA has a big pool of questions. And when you take your exam, you're getting a random set of those that correspond to the percentages that are in their exam objectives. And they all correlate directly back to those. So one of the things you have to watch for, though, is sometimes CompTIA will ask you a question about something that is not in the exam objectives. So you could go to your CompTIA exam, you sit down for your 801 or your 802, and one of the questions you get is about Windows 10. Like Windows 10 isn't even out yet, but they throw you a Windows 10 question. And now you're worried about the question you're getting, and you're worrying, did I study the right thing? Don't worry, because CompTIA, and they say this before you press the go button, is that they may ask you questions that have nothing to do with the exam objectives, but they also don't grade you on them. So don't worry if you see, you definitely see there's not a topic you recognize, or you know the exam objectives, and this is not in the exam objectives. Don't worry about it. That question probably is not one that's being actually considered for part of your score, which is tough. What if you know it? Oh, I knew it, but it's not the exam objective. Still no points for you. So sorry for those pieces. That's one where it does become a bit of a challenge. Yeah, just 2 monitors. Is that really enough tech for 2 monitors? Well, if you look, there's actually 1 monitor there. We did this in pre-show. So here's a 17-inch screen to the left. That's the video switching control that I have. The main screen in the front, I've got a second monitor for this. This is one single system, one iMac. I've got a screen actually to my right where the presentation is being shown. It's being controlled through the iPad that's here. I've got a preview and I've got a program, which is the 2 little screens in front of me. So you can see that currently I'm on this, my big head is over here. If I was to take that particular shot, I know what's coming up. I just hit one button, so I know which one's coming up. So yeah, there's oh, and I've got the big one in the front, in the back, the big 60-inch that is a duplicate of what's on the 17-inch. I don't know why it's here. I think I really wanted the big one in here because I wanted to bring the Xbox One into the studio. If I did that, I need to have a big screen for it. And so I'm saying to myself, that's why I have the big screen there. I've actually not brought the Xbox One into the studio because I'd like to get work done. And that's why. That's why I've been working with those. So that's one where I'm starting to figure out what needs to happen in here and arrange around. But we've got a pretty good arrangement. I've got pretty good set of equipment at this point. We're going to go with that, with those pieces. I think that works out pretty well as well. And I do have insurance for the room. That's a very good question. Not easy to get business insurance on a small business. It's a bit of a challenge, but they do have business in there to have that there. A business insurance. It does become pretty important. Just the video switching itself is definitely something you definitely want to have insured. No question. Yeah, the Xbox One, I really need to bring it in here, and I keep saying I'm going to, but I also say that's probably a bad idea. Let's maybe have this caller talk me out of it. Are you there? 248 area code?
Yeah, I'm doing hi, Professor. How are you?
Hi, doing fine. How are you? What can we do for you?
Good. I'm sorry. I just started studying the 801, and I'm going until right now to the laptop. And I just a little bit confusing between the BCMCIA card and express card. I don't know what this using for and what this using for.
Well, that's a one you'll run into. In fact, for the folks that are listening on the phone weren't able to hear that. This is from the 801 exam, and it's specifically around expansion of the 80 of a laptop. This is one. There's a whole section 3 on the 801 exam is about laptop expansion, and one of the things that you run and see into that one are really 3 different types of technologies. One is kind of an older technology you don't see much anymore, which is the PCMCIA cards and the card bus cards. The PCMCIA is kind of the old name. They changed that name to PC card, but it's certainly part of the CompTIA exam. You still need to know it. And there's also card bus was the update to that. You don't really see card bus either anymore. Maybe the older laptops, and I've seen some old laptops in my travels through the airports, so I know that at least some of those have card bus cards in them. What you tend to find these days are express cards. These are the card types that have replaced both the PC card, PCMCIA, and the card bus cards. And there's 2 sizes that you'll find. There's a 34 millimeter and a 54 millimeter, and they provide different capabilities. There's different sizes of cards that you can have there and the different capabilities. What you do with them, though, is exactly the same thing. It's just that the laptop you're using will support PCMCIA, it will support card bus, or it will support express card. One of those 3. Or none. These days, you're finding a lot of laptops with no expansion in them whatsoever. So what's important about this, though, is they all are providing the same functionality, which is to extend the capabilities of your existing laptop. Maybe it's a sound adapter, maybe it's an Ethernet jack, maybe it's providing some other type of external connectivity. The one that's on my screen for the express card, for instance, this is one that I have, and it has, this happens to be FireWire, and I think there's a USB in there. So these cards are giving you more interfaces on your laptop. They're giving you more functionality. Instead of having physical cards you would plug into a desktop computer, you're able to do this externally on a laptop and use them that way. So the functionality is the same. It's just a different interface that you're using to get those working on your computer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's makes sense because I watched the video like many times and I didn't get like what they use it for, and I didn't get it. So thank you so much. I got it now.
Very welcome. Yeah,
and I would like to thank you for everything you do for us. Thank you so much. God bless you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for calling. That's one that I, whenever I start working and adding more cards to my laptop, I just need more USB ports. That's pretty much all it is I need more USB. In the chat room, they're doing the same thing. Yep, need more USB ports. That's why I'm using an express card. Although for some of the things that I do, express cards could be an extra high-speed interface. I used to use a lot of FireWire, so I had more FireWire adapters. Now it's more Thunderbolt, so there's Thunderbolt adapters you can get on express cards. It's a very similar way to plug in and use those. Very useful to have them there. And I've got some of the old PCMCIA cards still sitting around somewhere. That's a technology, when we're talking about new versions of the exam coming out, that is probably where you will not see one of those listed any longer. They just have not been around for a very, very long time. Well, we've come to, I think, another hour's worth. My voice has held out, but it's losing ground pretty rapidly at this point. I think it's probably going to be a good time to wrap up the study group and the after show for this particular month. Remember that we have our Network Plus study group in a week. We've got the Security Plus study group a week after that. And I've got the entire month of July's dates already up on the Professor Messer website under the calendar. In fact, in July, we're mixing things up a little bit where one of the Network Plus study groups will be on Wednesday at noon rather than a Saturday at noon. So we're doing a few different things during the summer. You can, of course, at any time send me notes and messages. I like to try to reply and get back to as many people as possible. Simply go to the top of the Professor Messer website, click Contact Us, and you can send me a link there as well. And I'll be glad, or send me a note From there, I'll be glad to get back in touch with you. And we'll certainly see you in the chat room 24/7 throughout the week, if nothing else. And from here, we thank you for joining us today. Thanks for the chat room participating and giving me a lot of grief and asking the questions and calling in and participating in the study group. We'll do it again next month. Thanks for joining us. See you then, everyone.